Hello again. Please subscribe. I think the subscribe button's right over there. Like, make comments. In fact, I made a comment to the guy who does the video that I'm putting down below, referring you to. He's a homesteader, is what he is, and he's an expert on homesteading. He consults to people on homesteading, I believe. But he put out a video today that I thought was, thought-provoking. And what the name of the video is, Klaus Schwab Comes to Indiana for Chickens. And what he's getting at, what he covers here is he had somebody, some folks from up in Indiana, Washington County, Indiana, contact him and saying, hey, we've got this new code going in that they're voting on or just voted on, some new ordinance of some type, and it's vague and we don't understand it. It's a ordinance for trash, cleaning up things, cleaning up the community, to keep the community clean. Well, there's a lot more in there than just that. This is the problem that we have with a lot of laws these days. In fact, Congress is just sort of silly. They always, if they say we're going to paint the building black in their new code, then what they really mean is they're going to paint it white. It's always opposite. Whatever the name of it is, it's the opposite. But anyway, you can put all kind of things in codes and give them a name that has nothing to do with most of the things. And in this case, there were some strange things to these people who live in this town, and so they contacted, for whatever reason, this guy from the video down below. And as he started looking into it, he saw that there was a lot of 15-minute city kind of ideas in it. That's what he said, 15-minute city. And that's sort of a crisp way of pointing out what they're doing. And the whole 15-minute city, if you've listened to other videos, I've occasionally spoken about it or referred to it. The whole 15-minute city idea is that, people will live. The whole idea is that you're going to be controlled, essentially. You cannot leave your neighborhood without getting permission on some level. Maybe it's hardly anything, right? Maybe you just go through a booth like you do at, there's all kind of gated subdivisions all around the United States right now. And obviously you have a point you have to come through to get through, okay? At in I think it was London or somewhere in England, they had proposed doing this, and you had to pay some kind of toll to get out. Every time you left your 15-minute city or neighborhood, you had to pay a fee to do that. Why? Because you're being penalized because you're using your carbon footprint is too big, or for their liking. All right. So this is the way to control you. Unfortunately, I'm not sure that you can listen to people who will say, when this whole control thing is about truly controlling every aspect of your life, just about. That may be some nefarious psychopath's idea, right? And I'm not saying there aren't psychopaths in the world. Clearly there are. What was Jeffrey Dahmer? You kill people and eat them, right? Well, that's not normal. But somebody existed that did that. So you can certainly imagine that there could be somebody who, or maybe a group of people who've gotten together with this idea of ruling the world. And, you can see where this is a possibility. It's not, you could call it conspiracy theory if you want to, but it's a one that's quite possible, right? It's not just crazy altogether. But I'm not sure that's what's going on. In fact, I think probably most people think they're doing a very righteous, positive kind of thing, saving the planet. I mean, you got all these save the planet people. I understand the save the planet people. The first Earth Day, my 4-H group, who I was the leader of, got together and we went out and we picked up trash on the roadside, okay? We were doing our part to save the world, right? I mean, we were doing our part to, help nature, okay, instead of having it polluted. Now, and this was way back in the 70s. So, you know, we've come a long way since then with our notions of how to save the planet. But my point is that, you know, that was my heart, is to do. In fact, I got into my profession because I wanted to do good for the environment. And I worked on different on committees, sustainability committees, because I wanted people to know our profession knows about how to help the environment. And I've worked in ecumenically. I've worked in denominationally on creation care because I have a heart for environment. Okay. So I understand that people can have a heart and not have a nefarious idea to try to help out with it, different things. That doesn't mean that the notions that get put forward are, in the long term, a positive thing, you know, because certainly on the one hand, you have people thinking that someone's trying to enslave the human race. And then you have over here, on the other hand, people who think, oh, we're just trying to save the planet and humans are evil. I'm talking about the extreme side of it. Humans are evil, and we've got to control all this human evil, right? So those things exist. So this guy is seeing this code, and it's talking about, this is where there's, I guess, different, you can look at his video down below. I'm not going to go into all aspects, but one of the things they talk about is no chickens on a lot, piece of property less than 5 acres. Now that's a pretty good piece of land. I can tell you, I was talking to my wife about this. I can tell you, and this is what I said to her, I would much rather have an ordinance that controls the noise from these cars and my neighbor's outdoor speakers, their bass woofers that shake the windows in my house. And you know, the cars that may be playing it, they've got to be hundreds of yards away, a long way away, quarter of a mile away at least. Boom, boom, boom. And, you know, it disrupts your peace, right? And people do this at in the middle. I was, yesterday, this is amazing. I was in a shop sending a package store is what I was in for sending packages. And the guy's working with me, and all of a sudden we hear this boom, 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 boom. You know, and the music just going to it. And we started talking about, hey, I wish this didn't exist. And we're assuming that it's somebody out on the road who just came out of the stoplight. And the guy comes in and standing there. And we're talking about how, gosh, this is just, without not actually saying, whoever's doing that is a highly obnoxious person. Every turn, I think, hey, is that your car? And he said, yeah. And then I figured maybe he didn't understand what I was saying. Because if he was listening to what we were talking about, he could tell that we weren't being positive about the noise that was coming out. And it was his car. And it was just booming away. And my wife was out there having to put up with it, parked right next to her, and him just playing those speakers as loud as he can. He's not even in the car. Anyway, so that's an aside. But I'd rather have an ordinance on that than whether or not my neighbor has chickens. In fact, I've got a neighbor who's just here 20 yards away from my house. He's got a rooster. Right? I'd way more, I'm perfectly happy with that, and his goats and his ducks. All right? Now, I live in a subdivision. We're about a quarter acre. We don't even have 5 acres. Anyway, here we have a community saying if you don't have more than 5 acres, you can't have any kind of chickens or goats or anything. And I know plenty of places that have goats that have way less than 5 acres. So, and I live in a subdivision. Nobody, well, I just told you I have a neighbor with goats. this seems pretty restrictive. It strikes me, as far as freedom goes. So you can see where people get concerned about these kind of concepts. That hey, now as I understand it, the community, according to the code, if you can get grandfathered in. If your chicken, you can keep your chickens if you live on a 4-acre site, and we pass the code. But if the chicken dies, you can't replace it. So eventually, all your chickens, die or get eaten by the cats and dogs and foxes and etc. or hawks, and or just get sick, whatever, and you can't replace them. Sorry, you got 4.5 acres of land, a good chunk of land, and you can't have any more chickens. Too bad. This is what people who sit in offices or in classrooms or in libraries, that kind of thing. So these are the kind of things that people who go to symposiums and seminars, this is what they come up with and what they learn. How do I know this? Because I've done all of that. That's exactly where you get it. And you don't get it because necessarily because you're looking for it. It gets provided to you on a plate, on a platter. This is the idea. So, and I was thinking, now this seems to be the whole idea about like I mentioned Build Back Better, which is this is all part of. That's was formally done, like brought up in the World Economic Forum about 5 years ago, within the last 5 years. But obviously these notions are around for a little bit longer. But I was participating pretty heavily in sustainability-oriented kind of stuff back in the 2008, 9, 10, stuff like that. I would go travel across the country to different communities and serve as on their on the AIA. They would put together these weekend seminar kind of things with the community and I'd be the landscape architecture expert on sustainability on this team, and offer notions and be part of the discussion and do a presentation, etc., about what they can do for their own community to have a more walkable, sustainable, enjoyable community. Some might say joyful. Joyful has become a word here in the last 5 years or so. It seems like I don't use that word for this, but so where is this coming from? Well, I've been thinking, and it sort of hit me here a while back when I first heard about the 15-minute cities. I thought that sounds a lot like the new urbanism that's been talked about now for 20, 30 years, maybe more. New urbanism, I believe, basically where it got its start was postmodern design, these architectural kind of ideas about the aesthetic of city planning and stuff, and how to bring back more character to a city, and then how to bring back your experience in your town or neighborhood, in your community centers, how to make them more positive, livable, secure, those kind of things, attractive. But how people gather in space, how your environment, what's the shape of the buildings. One of the big things would be things like you don't have buildings that, and this is incorporated in piles of codes today. But your city, a building is built up on instead of having buildings built way back off the road with parking lots in front of them, they started building buildings up on the sidewalk again, as traditional cities would have been built. So suburban shopping areas, instead of being built, or semi-urban road strips, instead of being built the way we were building them with malls and shopping centers with big big parking lots, they have begun to be put up on the street, and to make it a more pedestrian friendly place, you don't have a 5-story building right up on the street, but it's like 2 stories, and then there's a setback, so it has a more pedestrian scale, etc., etc. So these are all aesthetically pleasing and nice ideas. I don't complain about them. What I noticed is well, in fact, I'm going to read you some of these are the new urbanism characteristics, okay, principles. The walkability. Neighborhoods are designed to be walkable with housing, shopping, and public spaces in close proximity. That is, you can get to them. The idea of this typically is that you've got a 5-minute walk tops. So if you need some bread or some milk or something like that, it's not a problem to come out of your home or apartment or whatever and go to the local corner store, basically. There's mixed use development integrating various land uses within a single neighborhood. So instead of the way zoning had happened for half a century at least, is that we said if you're industrial, you had to be here. If you are commercial, you had to be here. And they were separated. Things were separated. So neighborhoods became these huge areas of single-family homes, and then you get in your car and you drive 10 minutes to a store at the corner of a big intersection, right? So urbanism says let's mix things up so that people can you can actually have an office. Maybe there's an office building right there close to your house. You don't have to go 5 miles, and it wasn't, I don't think originally it was about saving gas. It was just simply to have a good experience, have a life where you're not spending your whole life on the road, like a lot of urban areas are. You get in your car and you drive for hours and sit in a parking lot of traffic on the road, right? Density, compact development patterns, obviously. If you're going to have people walking 5 minutes, you can't spread it out too much. Housing options, serving people of different ages and incomes. So you have a mixture of people. It's not just one. And what that means sort of like 100 years ago, a town would be designed where the main street, the high street, would be where the wealthy person had the nice house, and behind it, down the hill in the hollow, would be where the lower class person, who was the servants, where they lived. They weren't that far. They just would walk up, take them 5 minutes to get up to the house to do work, right? Transportation choices, prioritizing local building materials and practices. That's emphasize, which of course means you don't have to bring in marble from Italy, right? Emphasizing sustainable living. Sustainability, as time went on, I believe, became incorporated into things, because that is it for the holy grail for everything these days. I'm not sure that everybody even knows what sustainability means. And in fact, I see it used in so many different ways. It's really become meaningless, but it's a word. Public spaces, creating accessible public spaces. Obviously, you need places where, as a community, you can get together. And compact design, which is that's sort of redundant. Organizing streets and blocks in a compact arrangement. Now, as I mentioned, the idea about this new urbanism was that you would have a 5-minute walk to get your bread and milk and butter or whatnot, or your wine, whatever you might do. And when this 15-minute city thing came along, I thought that's interesting. That's not what new urbanism was really about. But the thing is that everything is a slow creep. Everything. If you're 30 years old, you hadn't been around long enough to understand everything is a slow creep. But I've watched things creep now for over 60 years. And they start with one little move, and then they go to another move, and then they add another, and then another, and another, until all of a sudden they got you. So, I think that's what's happened here. I can see very easily that the people who I participated with in pushing new urbanism, and I participated in that. I was um, an adjunct professor for a couple of years. I did a course in green infrastructure, and I taught these kind of, participated with the graduate students on these kind of design ideas to the way that particular program was worked out. A group of professors worked with the master students as they worked on their designs and ideas for their Master of Planning program, for their senior project, basically, kind of thing. So I can see very easily where, all right, we're already indoctrinated into all of these things I just talked about. They all seemed good. And they are good, certainly, if you like them. So there's people who, for example, a good example of this is Celebration Florida. Piles of people have come to Florida and gone to Disney and visited Celebration. And the interesting thing about Celebration is that there were a lot of people who bought into the notion, oh, it's going to be a great hometown kind of atmosphere for us. This is what we want. And from all over the country, and they would buy a home or build a home in Celebration. Some of them would be there a few years, and it wasn't the utopia they expected it to be. They thought they were getting back to the good old days when they that's what, a 1930s neighbor, a nice 40s, 1910, 1920 neighborhood, actually. That would be a good neighborhood experience, etc. They probably thought they could do whatever they wanted to do, whatever. I don't know. I didn't know the people. I just heard multiple stories of people who would come, live in Celebration, and then leave because it wasn't what they were thinking it's going to be. And so I think, this is what we get when we have all these codes that we come up with, is that they don't always give you what you think you're going to be and going to have. And certainly, and one who's trying to, doing site planning, trying to implement site designs that will fit the code, it's very difficult. It is not an easy thing to do urban infill or even suburban infill and meet all these concepts that the codes will have in them. And so often, the code says do X, Y, Z, and it's just not possible. So the city staff, because they don't want to penalize you, they end up going, okay, you can get by with doing something that really doesn't work for what the intent of their code is. Okay. So what's the best way to do that? This is where you get these people who are screaming up in Asheville and out in California about some people wanting to come in and do a new, or Hawaii on Maui, about they're concerned that what's happened is somebody's burnt down their community or flooded their community or whatever, so that they could wipe out everything that's there and start over and be able to build into these codes. These codes are there, I'm sure. And it's a lot easier to build them if you can wipe them all out. I'm not saying that's what's happened. I'm just saying you can understand where you just lost your house and you're wondering why and you're upset, and certainly that's an easy conclusion to come to, especially when of all the insensitive, silly things for the governor of California to do is like as soon as the houses are burned out there in Los Angeles, he stands up and he says, oh, we're going to build back a better community here. That's not what people want to hear. The people who live somewhere want to hear, we're going to get what we had. We loved what we had. Okay? And this is, I could go on about other things, but I'll stop there. Now, why is this a concern? So what? Another thing that we have is, code-wise, is the urban growth boundaries, where, which is a logical, sensible kind of thing, where you have urban sprawl happening, neighborhoods getting built further and further out. Lennar or some other major builder. They go out there 5 miles out of town where they can get a cheaper piece of land, so they can make a better profit or break even or whatever. Well, obviously, they want to make a profit, right? And so they want to build out there. Well, then the utilities have to go out there, or they want the utilities to go out there, right? Or maybe the county wants the utilities to go out there. That is, maybe the county doesn't really want you building septic ponds, out all over the landscape, so that you can pump your sewage into it, and settling ponds. Okay. In fact, the neighborhood I live in is an older neighborhood, and that's exactly what happened. When it was built, it was out of town, and there were a good bit of pastures between here and wherever the city water was and the city sewer. So this neighborhood had a settling pond, and it had its own well back behind the house. When I moved in, there was this big tank for this neighborhood, this community. And in time, is when I built my house here, they had just switched over to city water and city sewer. So instead, the pond was there for a while, but then it became a lift station. Okay. So my point being, that's what people will do to solve the issue for a subdivision, and maybe you don't want that. And maybe it's just better, fire protection and police protection. They don't want you building way out there because it means they have to have more policemen and firemen, and they have to drive further to get to you, and there's all kind of issues about all that. So let's create an urban growth boundary, and sort of penalize people who are going to build further out if they want to do some kind of dense kind of, like a subdivision kind of thing. If you're building a single family home out there with a well, etc., then that's not a problem. But that's just another one of those sensible control kind of things that control sprawl. Okay. That's not what these unfortunately, the New World, the World Economic Forum is about, etc. So, and I'll read this particular thing. You might have heard of, what's his name? Yuval Noah Harari. I tell you, I'm not sure that's the way you say that. I feel like I've heard it said different ways than that. But he's a professor. I think he's in Israel. I'm not sure. He's a professor, and he's an atheist. And these are what he's talked about. He's talked about that the era of free will is over. He's a transhumanist kind of guy. A quote that I saw applied to him is, "We are really acquiring divine powers of creation and destruction. We are really upgrading humans into gods. We're acquiring, for instance, the power to engineer life." Okay, so this is people at the World Economic Forum. This is the kind of things that some of those folks are thinking. They're not interested in your free will. So you can see where whenever they start cracking down on 15-minute cities, well, the people who were proponents of new urbanism and who have gone, oh yeah, well, new urbanism is make it 15-minute overall to save gas and stuff like that. That's all cool. Let's add that to our codes. And the thing is that all these planners and stuff, they go to their state conventions and things. If they weren't educated in their graduate programs and undergraduate programs, they go to the state conferences and things, and they have seminar after seminar telling you about how all this stuff is great. And so you get initiated into the idea, okay? And what saying, hey, instead of a 5 minute walk, let's just make it. Yeah, you can. We'll have 3 nodes within 5 miles. 3 little nodes that are all walkable, and then that's it. You can't go any further. It'll save gas. We'll put people on public transportation. They won't ever have. I remember seeing one of these people from with World Economic Forum or one of these kind of organizations saying, "Hey, just think about it. You won't have a car, and it's going to be great. It's going to be fun. You won't have a car, and whenever you have it, you just use your neighbor's car. Okay, you just go down. Now, I don't know. I just remember my wife, she's not happy whenever I'm driving the one car if she doesn't have a car to drive, right? She wants to have her own car to drive so that she can go where she wants to when she wants to go there. She doesn't have to hang around waiting on me, anything like that, right? So, see, that's where free will, the age of free will is over for these people. And then you have to ask yourself, so if someone's going to be on top of this pile, and so far in life, it hasn't been me. And I think that's where we have a lot of people upset about these kind of things these days, because they're not on top of the pile. They know there's somebody above them, and they know that they're not going to have the ability to have free choice, because they're going to have to bow to the people above them who are going to. This is the way of the world, isn't it? Kings have always existed, chiefs and kings, and there's always been somebody who's at the top of the heap. It's always been that way, and it doesn't matter whether you're in a communist country or a capitalist country. That's just the way of life. Somebody gets to the top and finds a way to sort of get a control of things so that they can have what they want more easily, and they're not really concerned about whether you get everything you want as quickly and easily and cost-wise as you might want to. Anyway, so the guy's concerned, and I think it's worth taking a listen to his presentation and talking about what this county is doing, and how it's doesn't seem totally above board. And again, it may not be that anybody's trying to do anything nefarious, that is, and naming it the trash code or whatever it's called. Maybe they just are trying to, let's see, we're trying to get something done at the city council meeting or the county council meeting this Thursday night. And instead of putting things in 5 different codes and having them vote on proposed codes and having them vote on things 5 times, we'll just put it all together and they can all vote it and we can get out of the meeting. Right? It could be as simple as that. Anyway, please like, comment, subscribe. Have a good day.